Are we live?
I have a little icon saying that we are live.
Yes.
So we are. Hello.
1 second. I'm double checking. Okay. Yes, we're live. It's just taking a while until we get live on my screen as well. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Aries Moon Girl channel. We're trying to get live over here, so probably those of you that are watching this later on will notice that we didn't talk for 1 minute. That's what we were trying to do. I'm happy to do a live video with you guys again. I have a special edition, a special surprise for you today. I decided spontaneously, it's not a Sunday, but I'm not doing the Superpower Sunday anymore. I decided to invite a friend and to discuss about karmic astrology. And talking more broadly, what karmic astrology is actually our destiny, and if astrology can help us in deciphering this destiny. But before getting into this, I want to present my guest for the day, Jean-Marc. Jean-Marc is a good friend of mine, which I met actually through YouTube and through astrology. And Jean-Marc, more than anything, is a storyteller and an astrologer. That's a lovely combination. He tells stories with the help of astrology. And I think the best is to let him tell you a few words about what he does.
Hello, thank you, Anna. What I do, I mean, as you say, thank you for mentioning it. I am a performing artist. I am a storyteller. So I've done a lot of storytelling. There is a lot of wisdom. It's symbolic language. The common thread between storytelling and astrology. It's a language of symbol. That's a language of images, and there is wisdom that is carried by these images or these stories, these symbols in astrology, like in storytelling. So at some point I was thinking, people are going to be more interested, even more interested, if I tell stories about themselves through their birth charts.
Yeah, if you guys are interested in knowing more about this, I'll put the link below after this broadcast is over for Jean-Marc's webpage, and also I'll link my own personal story that Jean-Marc actually wrote for me based on my astrological chart, which was the point where we became friends, because I was so impressed by the story, and I even made a video about it.
Mm-hmm.
So
you even remember that. All right.
Before we start talking about karmic astrology, the reason why I wanted Jean-Marc here is because Jean-Marc also specializes in this. He has a little Facebook group where you can find him. Also, if you're interested in going there, what's the name of the group, Jean-Marc?
Astrological Banter London.
Astrological Banter London. Yeah, and there you will see that Jean-Marc usually offers karmic readings, and because I have the opportunity to get the knowledge out of him, I wanted to do this live for you guys. So if anyone has any questions later on, you can write us and we'll try to answer them. But I think for the moment, let's just dive into the subject. What is karmic astrology from your point of view, Jean-Marc?
From my point of view, is the astrology that works with moon nodes. So there is, I don't know if anybody knows what the moon nodes are. but there are two nodes, the south node and the north node of the moon. These are not planets, these are points that do not actually exist. The Earth is going around the sun in a certain plan, and the moon is going around the Earth in another plan. So when the two plans intersect, there are these points called the moon nodes. One is south, the other is north, and the south node tells about past lives, about whatever we bring in this life from past lives. If we don't believe in past lives, we can replace it by family history, family genealogy, or whatever we get from the start. And the north node, always exactly opposite to the south, tells what we have to work on in this life to balance our energies, or where we will find fulfillment and happiness if we reach the goal of the north node.
So the north node and the south node are, from my point of view as well, one of the hidden mysteries of astrology. I think usually people get into their sun sign, and then later on they get into the moon sign and other planets. But if they go as far to discover their south and north node, I think there is always that aha moment that, oh, it all makes sense. And for me, it was definitely like this, where at the point where I started learning about the nodes, I realized, oh, it makes so much sense where I'm coming from. And I noticed, talking in relationship with the north node, I noticed that the north node was that one side of me that was a bit underdeveloped, or at least at that time where I started learning about it in my 20s, early 20s. I realized, oh, that's not my strong point. But can you tell me a bit about the north node, and how you see the north node, how you see its role, and maybe a few examples of your discovering the north node?
A few examples. The north node is somewhere. For me, I have a memory. I remember when I was a teenager listening to the radio and people singing, and it was as if it was something that I found both very fascinating, that people actually go on stage and sing songs and get their voice heard. And it was at the same time I was thinking, no, that's not for me. But actually this is for me, because my north node, which is in Leo, tells me to go out there and get my voice heard and get on stage. But at that time I was very shy and I couldn't imagine that would be for me, but it was at the same time something fascinating. So that's a challenge, and when we take the challenge and we get some success in this sense, we really feel like we are doing something meaningful.
Yes. Yeah, and we both had the same reaction to the north node. It was when I first found out about my north node. We both have north node in the second house. Mine is really in Taurus. Yours is in Leo, so the sign of Leo and singing and performing. But when I first found out about it, I also thought, oh, that's so not me. But I also kind of felt that I should get better at that. That's an area of my life where I should get better. And for me, it was even being more in contact with nature. I'm not a big nature person, and when I first read there about and being conscious of what you eat and all of this, and now years have passed, and for me realizing about my north node and all of this, I realized actually now I'm more in contact with nature. I became a vegetarian and trying to still be vegan as much as possible, being careful of what I put into my body. So this contact with your food, your nourishment, and all these Taurus things, which I was so far off from always. And I was always a bit a psychologer type of child also, like, okay, tell me your deepest fears type of Scorpio, but this side was something I never looked into.
Yeah, because you have the South Node in Scorpio, and that's true that Scorpio can be have such intensity in feeling or in thoughts that it's possible to lose touch, to lose contact with we say nature, but the body also is the body is our nature, and getting back in touch with our physical dimension is something very Taurus. And yeah.
Hi Jess. I now saw in the live chat we have Jess with us. Yeah, then Jess, maybe you can tell us at the end your South and North Node. I wanted to ask you, because we were discussing before coming live, you know, like how do you look at this? So I'm just going to tell my my summary of the South Node and the North Node is that we need to develop the North Node in order to fulfill our mission in this life, or to gain happiness. The South Node is like that bucket of happiness that's kind of draining out, and that won't give us any goods anymore. And the path to more happiness, to the path to gaining satisfaction and actually feeling fulfilled in this lifetime has to do with the North Node. But you told me that there is a very interesting way of looking at it, of looking at the North Node, and it's not just looking at what house it is in, and not just looking at the sign it is in, but you can really open the boxes up a bit more.
Yes, the whole chart can play the south to north dance, because the South Node is in a sign, and it is also in a house. Sometimes it's the same. In your case, your South Node is in Scorpio and in the 8th house, and the 8th house is analog to Scorpio. So once we know that Anna has her South Node in Scorpio, we say, she is coming from possibly past lives or possibly family history. Very often family history and past lives have something in common. So if we don't believe in past lives, we can say family history, or what comes to us through our lineage, through the past, from behind. So Scorpio, usually it's tense, it's a sign of emotional intensity. Sometimes it's a sign of challenge, of extremes, of sometimes of trauma as well. And the going to Taurus means, all right, all the hard times are behind, but now you've got to recover from it. But to know more about the South Node, as it's Scorpio, rules Scorpio is Pluto. So everything related to Pluto will tell us more about the South Node. And well, Anna has Pluto in Scorpio as well.
Scorpio.
In the 8th house as well. So we don't get much additional information there, apart from an extra layer of Scorpio. So we can read 3 times the textbook about Scorpio to get a feel of the energies that Anna is very familiar with. Not necessarily some things that made her happy in past lives, something that is very familiar, that has been worked on, that has been gone through. So
it definitely is very familiar. And also on this channel, the Scorpio video is the most watched one. But I'm also a bit proud when Scorpios are telling me, oh, you get the energy, because most videos out there, or most people, if they are not Scorpio themselves, they don't get the energy. But I think South Node, you automatically get that energy. You kind of feel, okay, I know it. I know that from myself. I have it somewhere within me.
You are Scorpio in some time. You are Scorpio in some way. In the south node, yeah, there is a real energy coming from there, because we are always much more than just our sun sign, or even the sun and moon sign. The place of the south node really says something about us. So having Pluto, ruler of the south node, still in Scorpio, we think you have 3 layers of Scorpio behind. So to know more, we look at what Pluto touches through aspects. So you have Pluto square the sun.
Sorry, I thought I now looked at Trine, of course. Square would have been yeah. I had the Saturn square in my head, but it's Trine actually.
Yeah, it's a trine, yeah, out here, and it's a powerful trine, because Pluto is 4 degrees and something in Scorpio, and your sun is 4 degrees in Pisces, so it's really exact. So it means that we can think that the sun, in Anna's case, is playing on the side of the south node.
Yes.
That the Pluto touches the sun means self-expression. Can I carry on with analyzing your chart live? So
the
sun,
Scorpio hidden mysteries are in the past. I'm an open book.
Yeah, when we open the book of mysteries, but understands only who can and who is there and to listen. So everything related to the sun will say something about your past lives. The sun is also about masculinity, about the man in your lives. So it is possible that when you meet men, as partners, starting with your father or the man in your family, and the men you meet in your life, especially with the sun, long-term relationships, or simply love affairs as well with the sun relating to Leo. There is this south node energy of the past involved, which make, I would say, if it's complicated, because with Scorpio and Pluto, the motto is often it's complicated. There can be passion, there can be real intense and deep connections, and at the same time complications.
Yeah.
And possibly suffering. Pluto, Scorpio sometimes.
Also a lot of planets in Scorpio. He's a Sagittarius, but a lot of planets in Scorpio, and it was a very natural relationship. I think when you meet people that have planets over your south node, you feel like it's also natural. It's nothing unknown to you. It's something very familiar. So you feel like, okay, we know each other. Even if we come from different cultures, we kind of have this connection, this familiarity. We can call it this.
Yeah, sometimes soulmates meet. I think we have soulmates, maybe more than one. We are bunches of soulmates, but sometimes you meet people you have already met before. So the sun, and you have your sun in Pisces and the 12th house. So there is an energy that combines well in the sense of it relates with feelings, it relates with sensitivity, it relates. What does Scorpio and Pisces relate with? Emotions, feelings, that this inner life, and
gut feeling also.
So all this is behind, and it needs to be balanced. If the north node is fulfilling, it's because it brings balance. When we walk on 2 legs. We are always on one leg or on the other. When we are when the weight is on our right leg, we move the left leg forward, and then we put all the weight on the left leg, and we move the right leg forward, and that's how we walk. And the south and north node can be a little bit like that. The south node is a leg we have all the weight on.
Yeah.
Move forward, it's a north node. And so after a lot of emotional intensity and possibly extremes of complication or even suffering, coming back to earth and relearning to enjoy life in the most simple way. Not enough psychological analysis. The problems may have been sorted enough. At some point, we come back to our body, we come back to nature, we come back to the simple pleasures of life. We try to define what we value on earth, not only in the life of I'm losing my words, but what we value on earth, our system of values, what is worth investing time and energy, and instead of living in a world of big drama and passions and suffering, coming to something more concrete and more simple, more enjoyable. But it's not going to be easy, because precisely the south node, if it's really ingrained, we have to balance it, because it's going to have a momentum.
Yes. Yeah, and that's my experience. Not for everyone that has not everyone has the south node in Scorpio and north node in Taurus, but definitely for me, definitely applies. First of all, that my life started in a way more emotionally intense, harder reality, way harder. I'm even born in communism before communism fell. So I'm born on a winter where my mother wouldn't bring me home because it was so cold outside. And so the whole package of hard, intense, family drama, and my life got gradually better and better and easier somehow. And also more exactly what we were talking before, this getting back to appreciating the little things, getting back more connected to reality, to nature, to all this Taurus stuff, which was so far off. And I think I was attracting a lot more drama in my earlier years. I was also creating that drama. So probably it's the south node, it's slowing down with age.
Yeah, with the Scorpio energy, especially at the south node, the sign on the south node is usually has a problem of their excess, their flows, and in Scorpio there can be a problem with self-esteem, the sense of self-worth that can be too challenged, and the north node in Taurus, getting a healthy sense of self-worth. This is a challenge.
Yes. And now we're getting too much into Taurus, Scorpio, and it's more general, but with Scorpio, it's really true, and it was so true for myself, the dependence of others. The 8th house south node, Scorpio, offers emotional support to others and is somehow dependent on others. Like 8th house also, not necessarily, so income stability comes from others, and the emotional support comes from the Scorpio side. And Taurus is the opposite. Taurus is self-reliant. It's and the 2nd house is self-reliance from your own work, money. So what I found in my earlier years was that it was really easy to comfort people emotionally, and a lot of people were also addicted to me because of that emotional comfort. And I think that's what something that Scorpios do, and they know they do it. It's making this addiction through emotional comfort, and then they have some benefits from it as well. They have the benefit of value, of value for themselves. They feel more valuable through others. And Taurus is not like that. Taurus is feeling more valuable just through itself, just through existence. So I think that's something that I noticed with the 8th and the 2nd house transition. And as you said, there's this leg that carries everything, especially in the earlier years, and then there's one step ahead, and then you go a step back and say, oh, it's too hard to put my leg down with the North Node. So you go back to what you know many times. That's my perspective on it. What's yours? Is there a balance? Is there a normal balance between the South and the North Node, or?
It's life. We always move forward and backward and forward and backwards. There is no straight line in life. But if we watch the transit, I don't live with my eyes riveted on the cosmic clock, because it can be also a little bit too much for the head. But probably when the transits activate the planets that relate to the South Node, we are going to, or transit on the South Node, it's we are going to be more attracted to the South Node values, and sometimes other transits will boost us forward.
You are having at the moment, you are having or just had a North Node transit, North Node or North Node. How does this feel actually? What does it bring up?
What does the North Node transit brings up? I find it difficult to say, because there are always different transits going on. There are always more than one thing going on at the same time. So I'm always cautious about things that I feel or that happens at the moment. I am at the stage where I think I've learned. I'm thinking I've learned a lot of lessons about how to move forward in life. A lot of lessons were about what not to do, and how to stay stuck, and how to stay stuck, and how to stay where you are and not being able to move forward. And I am at a stage where there are new beginnings. I am meeting new people. I think I see new collaboration being possible. I sorting my goals in my head, thinking what are the priorities, but definitely putting some order in my things with the idea, let's move forward and make things happen.
I think there is, from my perspective, there is a real danger in getting stuck in the South Node, and I've noticed watching people's lives, you know, especially people that are later in life, and once you know about someone's South Node and North Node, you cannot help but notice those behaviors, and you notice that they keep on acting like their South Node very much. So I think it can be that we always, I think that's it's safe to say that's our comfort place, the South Node. It's where we feel most comfortable and where we always go back to. And it's not as easy to keep on going back to the North Node. Sometimes you feel like, okay, I'll just go back to my South Node. I'll do what I'm best at. And I'm thinking if this transits like push you, it's like the ultimate push where you go for it.
Yeah, in psychology, the psychologists all know that we have patterns that we repeat and repeat and repeat, and this repetitive pattern that we are struggling to get rid of are connected with South Node values. And of the repetition, and sometimes getting out of the repetition needs a lot of awareness and a lot of work on ourselves in order to become able to behave differently and change our destiny. What's automatic we can leave behind, and then we do what we want to do more. That's the case. Maybe as I was speaking, I was wondering if I was talking about my North Node, which is in Leo.
Yes.
Precisely because the North Node in Leo involves a struggle to develop willpower and achieve some goals.
Yeah.
Not anyone's case. If someone had, yeah.
But I feel it the same. So, and mine is in Taurus. So, I think it is a struggle to achieve those North Node goals. Even if they are, maybe sometimes they could be the opposite. They could be Pisces goals. And you still might struggle. You might struggle to be spiritual. So both my husband and my mother have 12th house North Node, and they have this inclination. But especially with my husband, I notice it now, and I notice it always, like there's always like this, yeah, let's stay pragmatic and do some pragmatic things and organize the house. And it's like going against the spiritual side. But I think probably we all get in our lives also people that help us in this North Node path. That's very important. But talking about this, just karmic astrology altogether, if someone comes to you and says, I want a karmic reading, I want to see my my karmic path, you would look at the nodes, so the past and other aspects that you would probably look at in order to see someone's karma.
Yeah, we have to be careful with the word karma. We see energies in a chart. I look at the South and the North Node in signs and in houses. The houses and the signs are the same archetypes. So if we have a South Node, let's say in Aquarius, my South Node is in Aquarius, and it is in the 8th house. 8th house is like Scorpio, and we make an equivalence. Maybe I'm not very clear, but there are the sign and the house. So there are two karmic paths combined. And then I'm looking at the planets that rules the signs. So I take my own example. I have the South Node in Aquarius and in the 8th house. I combine ruled by Uranus. So I am going to look at Uranus to know more about where I am coming from. And the 8th house is like Scorpio, because Scorpio is the 8th sign. So I will look at Pluto as well to know more about where I'm coming from.
And what
so I look in my
chart? Yeah, in this case.
So in this case, Uranus and Pluto and their connections with other planets and the sign where they are in, the house, more importantly, where they are in, because they are big planets, tell more about the past. And then where am I going? I am in my North Node is in the 2nd house, so it's like Taurus, like you. So Venus is the energy I have to work on. And it's in Leo, so the Sun is also an energy I have to work on. So I've already 4 planets in my themes. Uranus, Pluto on the south side, and Venus and the Sun on the north side. Now I'm looking at all the connections. My Venus, for example, is conjunct Mercury. So Mercury is definitely on the side of the north, and it's going to help me achieve the values of Venus. I am going to look at all interaspects. So sometimes a karmic path will be clearly leave that behind and go there because you really need to balance. But in many cases, you look like a circular path where suddenly you find on the side of the north energies that were also on the side of the south. And in this case, it means here you have got to dig more. And to complete all that, I also look at Black Moon Lilith. Black Moon Lilith, which is the karmic indicator. That's a huge mystery, Black Moon Lilith, but it usually points out, it's safe to say that it points out as a sensitive point.
A sensitive point, you say?
But it's, I was thinking precisely before, after our last conversation, how can I explain Black Moon Lilith?
Yeah, that's a hard one.
We always have this problem as astrologers, because we are dealing with energies that are so wide, so big. We connect with the energies of the universe, and if we were able to understand them perfectly, that would mean that we are enlightened, that we have reached another state of consciousness. And as long as we are not there, we still have to know them by facets, bit by bit, and sometimes it's not completely consistent.
Yeah.
And the best way to approach planets, symbols, energies, and Black Moon Lilith, among others, is to be poet, more than scientist. Because one day it's one thing, one day it's another. Black Moon Lilith is extremely challenging. Usually it's challenging. When it's not challenging, that's because we have repressed it completely, because it could be so challenging that it shows somewhere a place in our chart. We don't want to hear about that. No. But maybe one day we are forced to face.
So
what we
can we give an example again?
Black Moon Lilith. Black Moon Lilith, let's say Black Moon Lilith in Gemini, or in the third house, because it means the same thing. Gemini is a sign of communication, the twins. It's one and the other. It's not especially romantic way. It's more like brothers and sisters, or like twins, precisely. With Black Moon Lilith in Gemini, we are likely to be very good communicator, because it's so important. It's so important because we want to be in communication with others. We want to be like twins. If we are twin ourselves, maybe we are looking for people to communicate as if we were twins, because we put the bar the highest possible, at the highest level.
Is Lilith then also a deep desire in this case? Okay.
Yes, there is a thirst for something absolutely perfect, of absolute. So we want perfection. In Gemini, we want perfection, communication, in the way we. So sometimes we so mad in our demand that we are going to waste it all. We are not going to be tolerant with the way people communicate in everyday life, because we are going to think that's so blurred, that's so fuzzy, that's bullshit. We don't want that. So at the limit, you are going to. It's possible to sabotage our own communication. We have such an ideal, and there is a frustration that goes with there, because we don't find this absolute. And at the same time, we can be extremely gifted and talented in this area.
Yeah. So it's like I'm thinking, could you call it like that passion that kind of burns you out a bit? I don't know. This is how it sounds to me.
It can be something that burns you. It's paradoxical. That's why I say we have to be poets, because it can be one thing and one day the opposite. Because life is like that. So sometimes it's one thing and sometimes it's the opposite. But it can be something that you have Black Moon Lilith conjunct Venus. So
I have it in the first house, with Aries.
In the first house, and usually I look at the planets it touches before the signs and houses, and it can make you someone who can be very in love,
Very passionate. Passionate.
That's conversation to have with your husband, not in front of the world on live, but that can make, for example, if we take Venus as a symbol of self-worth,
yeah,
because you may have something ambiguous about your own sense of self-worth, which in one way you can feel that you will never be able to reach your own standards.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you can also have a acute awareness that you are already quite high, because you will have worked a lot to improve your standards, and knowing where you come from, and you're looking at what exists around you. So you can be both having a very strong sense of self-esteem, and at the same time still feeling like
it's not enough. Yeah.
And many people will say, but we all feel something like that. But if you have Black Moon Lilith, yeah, as you say, it's going to be a burning point.
And a burning point also for acknowledgement, I think, with the first house, because to be honest, if a regular astrologer would just look at my chart in take Lilith out, of course, then there's the moon, because there's always 3 things or so that repeat themselves in the chart always. But you know, have you met 12th house suns in Pisces with a Pisces rising? They are not eager to be on YouTube for the whole world to see them.
Yeah, you're right.
That's so this Lilith inside of the more you dig into it, the more you understand the chart. And I think without this karmic aspects, without the North Node, without Lilith, like you just scratch the surface. I think.
Yeah, I was thinking with your example, because Venus is your sense of self-worth, and with your North Node in Taurus, it means that you have to work on your sense of self-worth to improve it, to balance possible past traumas. And Venus happens to be in Aries. And more than in Aries and the first house, and connected to Mars. So it means really that your sense of self-worth is when you take action.
Yeah.
By taking action that you're proving yourself that you are worth something, and possibly even taking leadership.
Yes.
Aries also. And being assertive. And Black Moon Lilith there is as if you are already driven to take action through Aries, but maybe you, before being born, you were thinking maybe it's not enough. So you have a whip in your hand, and you whipping yourself in the back to be sure that you are going to move forward.
I really do this. That's a good description. I have little tolerance for also I always had this critical side of my Pisces self, and I'm very critical to Pisces in general. I love them. All of my dear friends are Pisces, but I'm critical to them, to this lack of ambition, you know, because Pisces has this lack of ambition, and then my Aries planets, and probably Lilith, now that you're telling me, is pushing me towards ambition. So yeah, I always was like, no, get up, do it. Yeah.
And then so what very often happens is precisely when we look at Black Moon Lilith position in signs or houses or the planet it touches, it will repeat something that has already been seen through the South Node or the North Node, or the connection between the planets. So it's not a system. When we see, actually, I always look for repetitions.
Yes.
in your chart, the repetition is quite obvious because you've got your Venus, Mars, and Moon, 3 planets. One is the planet of the North Node, but it's really connected with 2 other planets, plus Black Moon, Lilith, all at the same place in Aries and the first house. It's not complicated, it's go there and there is no ambiguity, no hesitation. But sometimes, but I will take my own case because it's easier to explain, but I've got Pluto as ruler of my South Node in the 8th house.
Yes.
And my Sun, I have the North Node in Leo.
Yes.
The sign Leo. So the Sun tells me where I have to go. But my Sun is in Scorpio.
Yes.
That means that I am coming from 8th house, which is Scorpio.
Yeah.
But my Sun goes to Scorpio as if it says, go back there.
Yes. Yeah, it keeps you it keeps you there a bit. Maybe, you know, like for me, I think the discrepancy is a lot more, it's split, like it's the Sun with Pluto, and so in the past, and the future is all regarding this Moon in Aries, and for you, it keeps you in a loop. And you're right, then it makes sense to...
Well, yeah, very often you see whether one side or the other, or this kind of loop. Also, for example, Uranus, my South Node is in Aquarius, so we look at Uranus, and Uranus, in my case, is very close to the North Node.
Yeah.
So here it's not exactly like go back there, but take what you come from there and push it even more forward.
Yeah.
I've got this Uranus.
So it's integrating the South and the North Node.
So and I remember also a case that was very interesting, where it was really someone I made the theme for, where it was a woman, she had to kind of break up with her family, his were her roots, take some distance from a traditional education, from history and so on. It was really breaking up, asserting her difference, asserting her own values.
Yeah.
Just and do the same thing.
Yeah.
But in a positive way, I mean. That is, for example, breaking up with the past was breaking up with the Catholic religion that was lived in a very old-fashioned way by her family. But now she's a very spiritual person. So all the essential values, she found them again, but she expresses them in a way that is completely different, more like we do nowadays in the people who are spiritual without belonging to any religion, but they are the same values. But she had to break up to assert her difference before being able to go to reconciliation. So there are all the circle was possible to read in the birth chart, and was what happened in her life.
So yeah, it's not all black and white, definitely. It's and it's a challenge how you integrate both the South and the North Node. I think for me that's always a challenge, because I tend to go in full action, making my own money, making lots of money, and then I want to seclude myself, go back into my shell and do astrology, analyze people, and live a very spiritual but also not so pragmatic life as a Taurus. So it's finding the middle ground between the two. I'm just I'm just conscious of the time, and I was thinking maybe we can talk about one third aspect in karmic astrology, third thing we look at, and that's Chiron. And I think that's another mystery, like Black Moon Lilith, then there's Chiron usually, and I think Chiron is becoming more and more popular in astrology, but not many people really use it as much or interpret it. How do you feel about it?
I feel it's very important.
Mm-hmm.
It's very important because sometimes it makes a difference, which explain the. You have some charts. Sometimes when you see a number of problems, a number of issues, but it's all relatively moderate, and people who are suffering much more than they should according to their chart, until you look at Chiron, and then you see that there is something also very sensitive here. Chiron is not funny, not a funny planet. But it's I love it though. That's a wounded healer. With Chiron, usually we have a wound, we have some pain somewhere, and we have to deal with it. And and the more we deal with our own difficulties and our pains, the more we become able to help others before we are able to help ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so that's actually that Chiron is much easier to explain and understand than Black Moon Lilith because
yeah,
when you start from this pattern, you say you look all right. If Chiron is in the Cancer or the 4th house, so the wound is linked with family.
Yeah.
Libra is more going to be linked with relationships, the way to relate with partners. If it's in Taurus, we were talking about Taurus, that can touch the sense of self-worth or the attachments, the ability to be attached. Chiron in Taurus, for example, would be someone with avoidance of attachments, and so on. And it's because it's painful. Well, we all have pains in our life. Just because it's written in the chart doesn't make our life worse. It helps understanding. And the more we deal with that, the more we become kind of philosophers about it, and the more we are able to help others.
Yeah, Chiron, yeah, it's the pain that you feel that makes you actually best help others because you've been through it.
Yes.
For me, also Chiron is something I recently started looking at, and also in my chart it was it's out of place. It's in Gemini. I don't have anything else in Gemini, but it makes an exact square to the sun again in the 3rd house. And it took a bit of time to actually understand where it comes from and what it kind of wants. But for me, I realized that I had troubles with expressing myself, and I have Mercury in Pisces, so this is another redundancy somehow.
Have you terrible stories of being terribly hurt following misunderstanding or problem of not being
I have. Yeah. Now that you're saying, yeah, I have a few cases when I was a child when I entered into trouble because of misunderstandings in communication. But also, I think with Chiron there, and I've seen this. I think my father also has it, and I get this feeling in the 3rd house, and he says. He has this saying where he says, yeah, no one is going to listen to me anyways when he gets upset with me. And I think with this Chiron in the 3rd house, I also always felt like this sometimes, also in important meetings or also in at school or so, where it's physically your voice because is still in the third house, your communication, your voice is heard, but people don't hear your communication so much. It's yeah, it's like passing through their ears, and someone says exactly what you said because someone picks up on what you said and translates it to them, and then you get a, oh yes, that was it.
Right. Okay. So, yeah, so that's more Chiron, that's the wound, that's the thing that doesn't work, and that hurts because it doesn't work, and then you repair and you heal, and in the process maybe you know everything about the theory of communication, and because
yeah, I studied communication actually.
Yeah, there is a knowledge dimension. Chiron in mythology became a philosopher. It's a very knowledgeable being. It's a centaur. In the beginning, a centaur is not a scholar. It's a kind of horse, very instinctive horse with the bust of a human. But the centaur, apart from Chiron, are rather primitive and impulsive. But this one, because of the wound, became very knowledgeable and a philosopher and a teacher and so on.
Yeah, and yeah, Chiron is a bit of a teacher as well, I think.
Yes.
And I'm thinking, for me, it's also, I'm very good at teaching people. For example, I was the one that was training always people at work, everywhere. I'm very good at teaching others, you know, like what to say and transferring skills, transferring like this, yeah, small practical skills, because it's still the third house. But yeah, it's a paradox there, but this sensitivity probably makes us stronger. So in the end, probably Chiron is something that makes you stronger. Where is your Chiron?
Pisces.
Pisces,
yeah. 9th house. And how do you call the 150 degrees angle? Quincunx?
Queen, yeah.
I'm always struggling with this, how to pronounce astrology in English when you're not a native speaker sometimes. All right, but 150 degrees to the moon.
Yeah. And how did you experience it? What's your experience with it?
Oh, for example, the Pisces and the 9th house are both the 9th house is like Sagittarius. These are the two very spiritual signs.
Yeah.
Pisces are the mystics, and Sagittarius is a sign of faith. And a feeling like having to deal sometimes with a feeling of not being loved by God or by life or by the universe.
Oh, okay.
Like somehow, as if at some point there had been a judgment saying, Jean-Marc, you are not welcome in God's house anymore.
Yeah.
It's a
and they're both
intimate
signs of blind faith somehow.
Blind faith?
Yeah.
But that's somehow that's the relation of the spiritual, which can be something precisely. How come you get feelings like that? So you dig, maybe that's just because of karma and of horrible things that I may have done during some past lives, and maybe that's precisely we have. Or maybe that's something which is much basically psychological, because our societies, our cultures are completely contaminated with guilt, and it's not necessarily true. Just because we feel guilty does not mean that we are guilty.
Yeah. Definitely.
But maybe as we have all have had many past lives, we most probably have done a lot of terrible stuff since the beginning of the world.
Yeah. And what's terrible to begin with? Me and my Sagittarius husband, we have these discussions that about life in general, and that we were just discussing yesterday, that probably sin doesn't exist, and the idea of sin is man-made. But that's too philosophical to go into it.
Yeah, but that's precisely very interesting when we start with Chiron in 9th house, especially in the 9th house, where you elaborate systems and you try to see the philosophy of things. Precisely in the religion, in the Catholic religion, there is a concept called original sin.
Yeah.
That means you're a sinner just by birth, by the fact you're born. And this notion of sin is really the notion of being wounded in your relationship to the spiritual dimension.
Yeah.
So now whether this is a metaphor, whether this expresses a feeling, whether this is true or not true, everyone has their own ideas about that. But in astrology, we can see that there is a sensitive point and something to heal. So with the philosophy that evolves, maybe at some point you realize that actually sin doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Or sin could mean something different from this horrible feeling of being guilty. And that there is a different way to look at it, and you heal the feeling.
Yes. It's getting dark over there on your side. So I think we've been on for an hour now. Like I said, I will, if anyone has any questions, or if you guys know your North Node, South Node, and want to ask something. If not, I know usually people don't know their North Node and South Node, but I will suggest that you guys go to astro.com. You can make a free profile there. And just have, hi Danny, just have a look at what your South Node is and what your North Node is. There is a selection there in chart. And once you know that, it's so interesting to dig into it a bit more. It's so interesting to see what your South Node is, which is tied to your past life. And you will certainly feel that you relate to that. So North Node in Pisces, South Node in Virgo. Oh, I don't know the degrees. Do you know the houses though, Danny? But I can tell you, and then Jean-Marc can maybe say a few words on it, but North Node in Pisces and South Node in Virgo, I was just saying I'm surrounded by people that have the 12th house North Node and the 6th house South Node. So you have Virgo and Pisces, which are the equivalents, which kind of for me means that your safe mode is that of you being in a very pragmatic mode, where you my North Node is conjunct my Sun in the 5th house. Okay, nice. So then the other one is in the 11th house, the South Node. But talking about Pisces and Virgo, so your default mode would be to go to pragmatic things, to be pragmatic about life and to organize things and to deal with what needs doing and all of this. And your North Node in Pisces, for me, on the one hand, yells spirituality, but also creativity through spirituality. So there's a side of you that's very spiritual, that's very creative, where you can actually flourish the most. But probably for you, it's very easy to be the organizer in a group and take care of your friends and be pragmatic. And sometimes you just fall into your North Node nature of expressing yourself, expressing your creativity and your spirituality, and then you retract it. Or at least earlier in life, this is what we do. Yes, that's true. Okay. Yeah, this is, we feel very comfortable in the South Node, and you will feel comfortable in a group of friends organizing things for them. But at some point, it's better to go on the stage and shine and let your creativity shine, your Pisces side. What do you believe, Jean-Marc, about North Node in the 5th house? What is Danny?
The North Node in the 5th. The North Node in the 5th.
Pisces.
In the 5th and in Pisces, or no? Or the North Node in
Yes.
Pisces? What is the question?
So if you have an opinion about it, because you have a 5th house Sun conjunct Neptune, that's why I'm asking, because I feel there's similar energies there.
Yeah, so it's not Virgo Pisces anymore.
No, she's Virgo South Node in the 11th and Pisces North Node in the 5th.
All right. Okay. So there is this. It's a combination of both.
Yeah.
The Sun conjunct the North Node in the 5th. That's really make double whammy, double layer of Sun and of 5th house. The 5th house means it's time to go out there. It's time to shine. In any way, but it's time to shine. We live behind Aquarius, and Aquarius has something to do with belonging to the group, being a member of the community, or possibly being being a member of the community as a rebel, possibly. But in Aquarius, you can be the guy who is not like the other. But if you are not like the others, it's still by comparison with the others. You are like in a circle of people, and at some point it's time to take center stage. There is a moment where we have to be there and say, okay, maybe I'm just one among others. No, I'm not worth more than others, but actually there is one thing better than others. There is my own light, and nobody is able to shine my own light the way I can. And if I don't give what I have to give, nobody is going to give it. So it's going there and taking the center of the stage in some way, and possibly it can be about love. It can be about love as well, because in Aquarius we can be very in the head. And sometimes we are so much in the head that it's time to go back downward and say, hey, there is a heart as well asking for more expression. And it could, with the Pisces, in that case, it's a spiritual love. I was remembering when we were talking about Virgo to Pisces.
Yeah.
I am not a preacher. I was raised as a Christian. Now I am completely free. I am a free spirit, but I remember a few very good stories from the gospel, and there is one that's relevant there. That two sisters called Martha and Mary. Do you know this story?
No.
And Jesus is visiting the two sisters. One is Martha, one is Mary. And actually, Mary is doing everything that you do when you receive someone important. So she's preparing the food, dressing up the table and putting flowers on the table. And actually, she's busy doing all the things you must do when you receive someone. And Mary, but she does nothing. She's just talking with Jesus. So Martha, she says, yeah, at some point she's fed up. She says, hey, Jesus, look, I'm doing all the work and my sisters do nothing, just talking with you. Tell her to come and help me. And Jesus says, no, not that much is important. What's important is talking with me.
Yeah.
And Virgo to Pisces it's not that important, all these material details, just a little bit. And don't forget to go for what's important. If you have a guest, go and talk with them. Something.
Yes.
Go for this.
Yes. So Danielle is telling us that I don't know if you see the chat, Jean-Marc. She said, true. I just faced my shyness this year in a major way. I was hired as a model actor to film a series. So that's 5th house there. Really good. Keep on the 5th house. And we have one more question. Let's just answer this. So synastry, if your Saturn is conjunct another self node, will karma end in this life?
Saturn conjunct South.
Nothing ends, Margaret. We go into this, but you like it because you're philosophical as well. But nothing ends, so karma doesn't really end. Jean-Marc, I don't think I hear you anymore. Can you say something? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I'm still here. The question was about Saturn conjunct the South node in synastry.
Yes.
Oh, that's difficult. What could that mean?
I can say something about it because I had it, and I had it with a very, very important relationship in my life. A very, like, the most karmic encounter you could have, because it changed the path of my life as well. And there is Saturn conjunct South node, and for me, I think it kind of ended the karma in this life, but it ended. It brought me a last push towards the direction I needed to go, in a career, life change, status in the world. But I think also Saturn with South node could also mean a relationship that's slowly improving. So where you have South node, you get less and less of something. And where there is Saturn, like, there is an obstruction there. There is something, there is a harshness to that relationship. And if the relationship is here to stay, I think it gets lighter. So it gets from this heaviness of the relationship, it gets lighter and better. Like, the same is valid for Venus with South node, for example, where actually with time also that Venus attraction gets lighter with South node. So it's sometimes better to find someone that conjuncts your North node, because that grows and becomes more and more. And with South node, it's like water that runs dry with time. So with Saturn, it's not a bad thing, it's a good thing, because the harshness runs dry. Yeah,
it made me think that the person who has Saturn could be the person who will prevent the other to stay stuck in their South node.
Yeah,
kind of, I know, it's comfortable here, but you can't because I'm here.
Yeah, like that's such a good, that's such a powerful statement. Yes, definitely for me it was this. Yeah.
So you're deprived of comfort zone.
Okay, so I think we had some questions as well. We went over an hour. If you guys want, I'll put down below Jean-Marc's site, so you can go and see what he does there. And also our astrology group, I'm also there. So if you guys want to join and are interested in astrology.
Ask questions on the group, and you get some answers in writing.
Yes, yeah. This is what Jean-Marc always does. We debate questions there, so it's a really interesting group. So I'll put all the links down below. Thank you for joining us. I think this topic of karma is such a big one. We cannot cover not even a tenth of it, but I hope it was insightful for you guys. Thank you so much, Jean-Marc, for joining me. And maybe we do another one later on on a different topic.
Cheers.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.